You know what I hate? I hate when you have this perfect theory and then Steve Denuser does an interview and knocks the theory out of the park. Well, out of the park would probably be a good thing. So let's just say whatever he did, it destroyed the theory. Sad face. Sup, ladies and gentlemen, Akulon here, and welcome back to each and every one of you. And of course, if you are new to the channel, thank you so much for joining us. I am very happy to have you here in yet another interview. It seems like Blizzard have really stepped up the interviews, moving into the Shadowlands, so it's like literally, 2 days away from the Shadowlands launching, and we've just got a myriad of interviews that need to be covered. I've already done the Ian one, that should have been up on the channel already. This is the second interview that we're covering, this time with Steve Denuser, and of course, as you can imagine, this is the interview that I'm most excited for, because I love the lore, and Steve Denuser is the lore guy. So I'm not going to go through the whole interview. As always, I will have a link in the description down below for you if you want to see that interview, but I am going to go over what I consider to be the most important parts of that interview. Remember, you can follow me live on Twitch. The link is in the description down below. Also, every Sunday right here on YouTube for just absolute 4 hours of loregasm. That's effectively the best way for me to describe it. Remember to hit that like button. It does help out the channel a ton. Also hit that subscribe button, but most importantly, enjoy the video. So the first question he was asked, as always, this seems to be something that bothers a lot of people. I myself not as bothered by it because the answers were given, and I just really knocked my hand into the table quite forcefully. But it is about the anima that exists in the Mists of the Mogu, and then of course the anima from the Shadowlands, and we do get confirmation here that this is not the same. Again, we have a bit of flip-flopping here from Blizzard, going from, yeah, it's sort of the same, to, no, it's not the same at all. These are two different types of things. I'm glad that this was now sort of locked down, but it does open a ton of different questions, right? What exactly is that anima then? Why is it that the Mogu have this source of anima that for some reason is anima, but it's not the anima that is used in the realms of death? How does that work? Alright, once again, he's asked about the when a soul dies in the Shadowlands, and he does confirm that yes, dying in the Shadowlands is permadeath, but as we've discussed in previous videos, as the player, we seem to have this ability to tether ourselves to Azeroth. This is why creatures or denizens of Azeroth, when they die, at least us, the player, when we die, we are not sent to the Shadowlands because of this connection that we hold with Azeroth. And somehow, when we got to Oribos, there's a relic of the first one there, and we tethered ourselves to that relic as well. So somehow our souls have this unique ability to tether itself to wherever the hell we are to stop us from perma-dying. He then had a bunch of questions about Arthas and Uther and exactly how all of this works, and he does actually talk about the effect that Frostmourne had on Uther's soul, and that is something that they will be focusing on in Bastion. He also spoke at length about the bond that Arthas and Uther shared, and how we will be discussing that. What was more interesting to me is how the cosmic energies that both Uther and Arthur represent, how that is going to play a major part in how the story unfolds moving forward. So these are still, I'm not really giving you much insight into any of this because we don't have a lot of insight into this, but I do find it very interesting. Obviously, Uther would have been a servant of the light, so the cosmic energy that he would have served is the light. Arthas would have been a servant of death, or at least of the jailer. Whether the jailer is in fact coupled with the energies of death, or maybe is the main energy of death, this I don't know yet, but it is interesting to see how Blizzard really wants to tell that story and really wants to play off of that story, so I'm definitely excited for that. Then, of course, he goes on to confirm that we will see more realms, and what is sort of interesting is that it does appear as if the Shadowlands, not only is it a place for the souls of the dead, but it does seem to be a cognitive place, or a cognizant place. he says here, the Shadowlands has the ability to create new realms based on necessity. So if the Shadowlands requires a new afterlife in order to exist, in order to do something, it has the ability to create that new afterlife, and we're actually going to see that in future patch content. I've already shown you guys the arch, or the archways that exist within Oribos. There are 3 current that is completely empty, where nothing exists. The others are filled with our gateways to the different realms that we already know about, but these 3 are empty. So I do think patch 9.1, patch 9.2, and patch 9.3 will bring with it brand new zones that we get to explore, and maybe more stories that needs to unfold in those zones. But it was sort of an interesting revelation to hear that it's the Shadowlands itself that seemingly can create this. He also asked or talked about the Great Beyond, or at least the In-Between, as it's called. Now, for those of you that don't know what that is, as you travel from Oribos to one of these zones, you're actually for a moment stuck in this place where the zone that pops up is called the In-Between. The In-Between is not empty. It is very difficult to traverse though, but it is not empty. It is filled with secrets. There is a massive amount of energy that exists within the In-Between, but in order to know what it is, in order to uncover its secrets, one has to be pretty gifted in that sense. And I wonder if the brokers doesn't have something to do with that. I wonder if the brokers doesn't have something to do with this energy that exists within the In-Between. He was also asked about the Shadowlands and the Twisting Nether and their relation to time. Now, for those of you that don't quite understand that analogy, the Twisting Nether transcends time. The Twisting Nether lies outside of the different time zones or the different time strands. The Twisting Nether is sort of, if this is all of the different timeways and all of the different timelines, the Twisting Nether is above that. So he was asked about the Shadowlands and if that is the same. And then he actually made this point that is really cool if you think about it. Time is a function of order, which leads to my theory that it was the Titans, Aman'Thul specifically, who may have broken the timelines. It may have been Aman'Thul that split the timelines into the thousands of different timelines that exist today, and all of that was done to increase order. If you can split the timelines, you can establish order in a single timeline, and the other timelines can just go to hell because they don't matter, because it's just this one timeline that you want everything to sort of function optimally in. And then of course we know that the old god seems to be very much obsessed with these timelines as well, because it does play into what they believe, and that is 1,000 different truths as it exists within the different timelines. Now Denuzer's answer here is effectively that time is a construct of order. It has no bearing on the eternal. In the lands of death, time doesn't matter. They don't think about it because they live forever. They are immortal. Time is literally not a necessary thing. It's not something that they use to measure anything because they live forever. There is no time in the Shadowlands. So that answers that. And also, of course, I do need to sort of elaborate on this for those of you that still think, what about the Great Time Skip? What about the Great Time Skip? Is there going to be a time skip? We've already had confirmation that while time doesn't matter in the Shadowlands, for us as mortals, time still passes the exact same way. It goes at the exact same speed. A year in the Shadowlands is a year in Azeroth, or on Azeroth. 2 years is 2 years, so no. There is not going to be a time skip at the end of the Shadowlands. So here is where I was wrong completely. Steve Denuzer just broke one of my theories. Remember we talked about why some souls, most specifically Sylvanas, just seems to skip the Arbiter completely. When Sylvanas threw herself off the top of Icecrown Citadel, she did not at any point appear in front of the Arbiter. She skipped all of that and went straight into the Maw. And our question there was why? Because at that time, when Sylvanas jumped off the top of Icecrown Citadel just after Arthas was defeated, she was most definitely not yet irredeemable. I mean, prior to that point, she had spent her entire life defending her people, an honorable thing to do. She had spent her entire undeath trying to defeat the man that almost destroyed the land of the living. Again, not something that I would consider to be an irredeemable act. And yet she still managed to straight go into the Maw. She appeared in front of the jailer, not in front of the Arbiter. So why exactly does this happen? Denuzer didn't want to talk about that, but he did, however, say that we call the Forsaken or the Scourge the Damned, but that does not mean that they are damned for all eternity to the Maw. They still go to the Arbiter, they still have the ability to appear in one of the realms there. Nothing changes on that front. It is what it is. Someone who has been slain by the blade can go to the Arbiter and can go to one of the other zones. So I don't know. I genuinely don't know what that answer is now. I still think that maybe they're slain by the blade and then the resurrection leaves some sort of taint on their souls that unfortunately just means that they are not pure enough to go somewhere else. I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. All right, and then we get to what I would consider to be the most exciting bits of this interview. He tells us that we will learn what happened to the Arbiter and how exactly she broke very early on. Like literally as we go to Oribos, there will be a cinematic that shows us what happened. What happened on Azeroth in order to break the Arbiter. But I would be a very bad speculation channel if I did not tell you that I think I finally know what did it. I think I finally understand what broke the Arbiter. Alright, so we know that Ursoc, Steve Denuzer says it in this interview by the way as well, the reason Ursoc went to Ardenweald, appeared in front of the Arbiter, was judged and pushed to Ardenweald was because when Ursoc died in the Emerald Nightmare, the Arbiter was still functioning. So this immediately throws out the theory that it was the Lantern that broke. So the Lantern broke before the Emerald Nightmare, which means that we have the Lantern breaking, we have the Emerald Nightmare, Ursoc dies, Ursoc gets sent to the Arbiter, who is still fully functional, and Ursoc is sent to Ardenweald, and then only do we find out that the drought starts. So somewhere after Ursoc's death, this is when all of this starts. So what happened? What happened? I think I finally know. Remember at BlizzCon we were told that the Lantern doesn't just do what we think it does. It's called a soul cage, and we thought that it was meant to cage Aegir into the Lantern, which effectively would bind her to Sylvanas. And Ian Hazzikostas himself said that Lantern does more than just that. What we as players think it does, it's got far more that it does than just that. So here's what I think happened. Helia and Sylvanas made a deal. I will give you this Lantern. You can use the power of this Lantern to enslave Aegir to give yourself an eternal army, if you will. In return, though, you will take this Lantern, the very thing that binds me to Helheim, and you will unbind me. So in other words, you will take this Lantern, do the thing that you need to do with it, but then unbind me. So that when I die, I do not once again awake within the Helheim. Now, we already have confirmation again from this interview, and very, very interesting interview, that Helheim is not inside the Shadowlands. It's not inside the Maw, but Helheim is tethered to it. It's close to it. You see, I believe that Lantern was the anchor that kept Helia within the Maw. So no matter what happens to Helia, Helia would die and then she would just be reborn inside the Maw. So it's sort of like Odin's own little torture chamber. Odin can smack her down, kill her, and then she's just reborn. She will be his slave eternally. Odin never realized that when you kill her, or Odin never realized that if you kill her and that lantern is outside of Helheim and it has been broken outside, that Helia would now not go back to Helheim, but she would actually show up in front of the Arbiter. And I believe that is what killed her. Odin sent us to kill Helia. I believe it was Helia's death that broke the Arbiter. Now that Helia is free, her soul so tainted, so twisted by hatred, even a moment in front of the Arbiter would have guaranteed the Arbiter would go offline. Helia may have infected the Arbiter, so to speak. And this is what brought the Arbiter down. So that's just my theory. I'm not saying I'm correct, but that is the only other time I can think of which would still put everything within the necessary timeline, would be that. So again, so let me know in the comment section down below if you think this is a believable story in any way, shape, or form. We'll probably discuss this more tomorrow during the live stream, but this is sort of the theory that I have right now of it, at least. Yeah. All right, he then throws in a couple of very interesting things. So, for example, Death had a hand, or at least an influence on Azeroth long before Ner'zhul became the Lich King and was sent to Azeroth, and he did say that we may learn about the Nerubians a little bit more in future content. So maybe not in the Shadowlands, but in future content we will learn about the Nerubians. And again, I can't help but think everyone seems to talk about Death and then very specifically talk about the Jailer. The Jailer seems to be Death, at least in my opinion. The Jailer appears to be Death. There was a lot of questions about Maldraxxus and Draka and why Maldraxxus was fighting the Burning Legion. All of these we've already covered. We already know exactly why that is, right? We already understand why all of these things happened. We've discussed that before. Again, you can go watch the interview if you want more information on that specifically. Then he's also asked about Ner'zhul and whether or not Ner'zhul would have been aware of the Jailer's existence when he became the Lich King. And Steve Denuser did sort of point out that Ner'zhul betrayed the Burning Legion and therefore he was punished. But we will learn what exactly the relationship between the Jailer and the Lich King is. And it's interesting the way that Denuser phrases it, not only in the notes, but also in the actual interview. The way he phrases it, it is almost as if it's two different things. The Jailer does have influence over the Lich King, but the Lich King is a separate entity, so that also destroys one of my theories, where I sort of said that the Jailer and the Lich King is sort of the same thing. Whereas this does seem to, at least the way in which he answers it, does appear to suggest these are two different entities. While the Jailer does have control, or at least some modicum of control, the Lich King is very much an entity in and of itself. Alright, just a couple of very interesting things that those of you that's been following this channel and know about some of the stuff that we discussed and some of the questions that people may have had. Derek Proudmoore, for example. Why did Derek Proudmoore not remember what happened to him in the Shadowlands? And according to the news here, if you died for a prolonged period of time and you're brought back, you don't remember. The Shadowlands is a veil. There's a veil between us and the Shadowlands. So Derek Proudmoore, while he was in the Shadowlands and he was in one of these realms, the minute he came back, he did not remember what had happened to him. And I think the argument I would make in this instance is his mind did not go to the Shadowlands. He sold it. The mind will only remember the memories up until the moment he died, and then the mind would have stopped remembering. So your soul coming back and being tethered to your body, only the memories of that which you have seen with your physical eyes and recorded with your physical mind, those would be the memories that is still present. So that's just sort of an interesting little tidbit, I guess you could say. He also talks about the light in the Ember Ward. Now, I've shown you guys this multiple times within Revendreth. There is this giant light-scorched area where the light attacked Revendreth. We don't know exactly why they attacked Revendreth, but they did. And we do also learn that it is the exact same light that we have on Azeroth. It is the cosmological force of light that attacked Revendreth, and we are going to learn more about why exactly those things happened. Two more things that was covered in this interview that I found really, really interesting. One of them is that Anima, and this is actually something that opens up a lot of questions. Anima cannot be drained from the living. That sort of confused me because, as it turns out, Anima is something that happens to a soul after your life ends, not before. So while you have Anima, and that Anima is building, Anima cannot be extracted from the living. One must be dead in order to lose one's Anima. So this sort of throws a lot of answers into why sometimes during the leveling experience in Autumnweald, you have to go ask other characters to grant you the Anima, and you're thinking to yourself, well, why can't I just give my Anima? Well, as it turns out, you can't do that. Anima can only come from the dead. And then, of course, a nice answer or a nice question to end it on. If Sylvanas didn't shatter the veil, would we still have been able to get into the Shadowlands? And Steve says, yeah, but it would have taken a considerable amount of effort in order to get in. But the veil does not completely stop us from gaining entrance. It just makes it very difficult. But you should still be able to get in, even if the veil didn't break. You would still be able to get in. I found this interview to be extremely interesting, extremely exciting. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I love covering stuff like this and giving you my thoughts and my opinions on some of the things that comes out of these interviews. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Remember, if you like this video, to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and smash that bell. It does help out a ton. And then to all of the patrons, Twitch subs, and of course the YouTube channel members, thank you so much for your monthly contributions. It does mean the world to me. Thanks to you guys, this channel is still growing, and it's growing stronger every single day. I quite literally wouldn't be here without you, so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Guys, always, my name is Aquilon, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out, fam.